Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're hours away from revealing the truth that could shatter an entire murder case, and then you're found dead. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. Coincidence? Please. In the twisted world of the King Von murder saga, coincidence is just a lazy word for cover-up. Today's bombshell is one the streets will never forget. A key witness, the one everyone was waiting to hear from in court, has been silenced. Permanently. And not just any witness. This was the person insiders claimed had the piece of evidence that would blow the case wide open. But instead of walking into a courtroom, they were zipped into a body bag. So, tell me, was this an act of fate, bad timing, or was someone making sure their secret stayed buried 6 feet under? Who wanted this witness gone so badly? And why, hours before they were supposed to testify? We've seen shady trials. We've seen mysterious accidents. But this is a whole different level of dirty. Strap in, because by the time we're done, you'll be questioning everyone, from the streets to the suits, and wondering if justice ever stood a chance in the King Von case. You think you've heard every twist in the King Von case? Think again, because the streets just got a reminder that in this game, the truth doesn't just set you free, it gets you killed. And the latest coincidence isn't just suspicious, it's screaming for attention. The man, or should I say the target, was no random bystander. This was Deshaun Lil D. Carter, 27 years old, born and raised in Chicago's South Side. A face known to both sides of the courtroom, the defense and the prosecution. The one person who, according to sources close to the investigation, the type who liked to whisper in dark corners, was holding information so explosive it could have blown the case sky high. And now he's gone. Let's rewind. Lil D wasn't exactly an angel. Arrest records show a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt. Petty theft, drug possession, illegal firearm charges. The kind of record that prosecutors love to use against you. Unless, of course, you've got something they want. And D had exactly that. Inside knowledge of the night King Von was killed. How? Well, according to a leaked transcript I may or may not have obtained, don't ask how. D was there. Not at the exact moment of the shooting, but close enough to hear the chaos, see who ran, and more importantly, overhear conversations in the hours after the murder. We're talking about names, motive, and maybe even the real chain of command behind the trigger pull. The problem? D wasn't exactly loyal to anyone. He'd been flipping sides like pancakes. First, he offered information to Von's people. Then, allegedly, he was spotted meeting with associates of the accused killer. And then, just when everyone thought he'd gone quiet, his name popped up on the prosecution's witness list. And that's when things got dangerous. Because let's be honest, in cases like these, witnesses don't just change their minds or forget details. They get reminded, violently, about the cost of speaking up. And from the moment D's name leaked, he was a walking target. Reports say he'd been acting paranoid in the weeks before his death. Friends say he stopped answering calls, kept changing locations, and even slept with a gun under his pillow. He told one friend, and I quote from the so-called anonymous DM leak, "If I make it to court, somebody's world is ending." Sounds dramatic, right? Well, drama turned deadly last night. Here's what went down. Around 10:47 p.m., D left a small recording studio in the Bronzeville neighborhood. CCTV shows him stepping outside, hoodie up, phone in hand. 2 minutes later, a dark-colored SUV pulls up. No license plate visible, because of course, 2 masked men jump out. D tries to run, but 3 shots ring out. He drops instantly. The shooters, back in the SUV before the security guard inside even realizes what happened. The whole thing took less than 20 seconds. Professional, surgical, the kind of hit you don't just find on Craigslist. Police say they're investigating all possibilities, which in cop language means don't hold your breath. But the timing, hours before he was due to testify, is impossible to ignore. And let's not pretend this is the first time something like this has happened in a high-profile case. From Tupac to Nipsey Hussle, the streets have a long memory, and loose lips have a short life expectancy. But here's where it gets even messier. Rumor has it, D had already recorded a statement for the prosecution. a sealed deposition, which means somewhere out there, his words might still exist. And if they do, whoever wanted him gone might have just made things worse. Because now, instead of silencing him, they've turned him into the ultimate martyr. One insider, who I'll just call Jay, because anonymity is the only thing keeping him breathing, claims Dee's testimony would have implicated more than one person in Vaughn's murder, not just the alleged shooter, but others higher up the food chain. People with money, people with power, people who don't get their hands dirty. They just make phone calls. Jay told me, and I'm paraphrasing here, this wasn't just street beef. This was politics, money, and pride. Dee knew too much about all of it. If that's true, then Dee's death is more than a tragedy. It's a chess move, a warning shot to anyone else thinking about talking. Now, before you think I'm going full tinfoil hat here, let me point out a little detail the mainstream media won't touch. Dee had been trying to strike a deal with prosecutors for weeks. In exchange for his testimony, he wanted witness protection and relocation. But get this, his application was still pending as of yesterday. Pending, as in not approved, as in he was walking around the same streets as the people he might have been about to expose. If that's not negligence, I don't know what is. And you know what else is interesting? Less than 24 hours before his death, Dee posted a cryptic message on his private Instagram. If I don't show up, remember me as the one who tried. Chills. So here we are, one key witness down, a trial still hanging in the balance, and a whole lot of questions no one seems eager to answer. Who benefits from Dee's death? What was in that testimony? And most importantly, who's next? Because make no mistake, this isn't over. In fact, something tells me things are about to get even darker. And just when you think it can't get more twisted, just when you think the smoke has settled, the real fire starts to burn. Because hours after Dee's body hit the pavement, whispers started flooding the streets. Whispers that make his death look less like a random act of violence and more like the final chapter in a carefully written play. And those whispers, they point to something big. I got my hands on what's being called a confidential police memo. And by confidential, I mean some overworked officer probably left it lying on the desk of someone who knows someone who doesn't mind sending me screenshots at 3 a.m. In it, detectives outline a timeline of Dee's movements, meetings, and here's the kicker, conversations with people who shouldn't have been anywhere near him. One of those names? Let's just call him M. Banks, a well-connected figure in the Chicago music scene with a history that's dirtier than the soles of your sneakers after a block party. M. Banks is no stranger to controversy, club shootings, payoffs, mysterious disappearances of people who owed him. And according to this memo, Dee met with him just 48 hours before his death. Now, what could a key prosecution witness be doing with someone allegedly linked to the accused? Negotiating? Flipping sides again? Or maybe being set up? But it doesn't stop there. The memo also mentions a suspicious wire transfer of $25,000 into an account connected to Dee's cousin, 2 days before the shooting. Coincidence? Or was someone paying for silence? And when they didn't get it, they paid for something else entirely? You know what the prosecutors are saying? Absolutely nothing. Their press statement reads like a generic sympathy card. We are deeply saddened by the loss of a key witness. Our office will continue to pursue justice in this matter. Translation: we're panicking, but we can't admit it. Meanwhile, the streets aren't staying quiet. I spoke to an anonymous rapper, we'll call him Lil Frost, who claims Dee had been bragging about finally getting the bag before his court date. Frost says, "Man, Dee was out here talking reckless. Like, I'm about to end careers and buy me a crib in Cali. Everybody knew he was sitting on something big. That's why some folks got nervous." Nervous? Try terrified. Because the deeper I dig, the clearer it gets. Dee wasn't just another witness. He was a thread that, if pulled, could unravel the whole fabric of the case. And apparently, some people weren't about to let that happen. Cue the leaked audio, a grainy, barely audible clip that's been making rounds on private Discord servers. Supposedly recorded in a car just days before Dee's death, you can hear two voices, one male, one female. discussing handling the problem before Friday. The male voice says, "He talks, we're all done. I'm not letting that happen." The female replies, "Then handle it." Now, I'm not saying it's legit. It could be staged. It could be AI. But if it's real, well, it's the kind of smoking gun you can't ignore. And here's where the internet does what the internet does best, digging deeper than the police. Fans on Reddit have been piecing together Dee's last Instagram likes, DM screenshots, even random street cam footage to build their own murder board. One thread, with over 10,000 upvotes, claims Dee had already sent a copy of his testimony to someone out of state, someone who might release it if anything happened to him. If that's true, and that file exists, then somewhere right now is the key to blowing this whole case open. And whoever's sitting on it, let's just say they're probably not getting much sleep. Now, let's talk about the public reaction, because when the news of Dee's death broke, social media didn't just react, it erupted. Twitter? A war zone. Half the users are convinced this was an inside job orchestrated by powerful figures. The other half think Dee was just another casualty of gang politics. Hashtags like hashtag justice for Dee, hashtag King Von cover-up, and hashtag witness down started trending within hours. And then came the influencers. You got YouTubers making 3-hour breakdowns of the shooting angle based on Google Earth. TikTok detectives syncing Dee's final movements to conspiracy music, and Instagram truth pages posting blurred out crime scene photos with captions like, "They don't want you to see this." Of course, the mainstream media is acting like this is just another tragic headline. A young man dead, the trial moving forward. But that's the thing, trials don't just move forward when their star witness ends up in a morgue. They stall, they crumble, and sometimes they disappear entirely. So what now? According to my courtroom mole, a board intern with a love for spilling tea, the prosecution is in full crisis mode. They're scrambling to find backup witnesses. But guess what? Every single one of them is suddenly unavailable. Some are out of town, others don't recall details anymore. One even claimed they lost their phone and can't be contacted. Yeah, sure. And if you think the defense isn't loving this, think again. With Dee gone, a massive chunk of the case just evaporated. And if they can convince the jury that the rest of the evidence is circumstantial, game over. But here's what really chills me. Dee's death isn't just about silencing one person. It's about sending a message. A message to every other witness, every other potential whistleblower. Keep your mouth shut, or you'll end up like him. It's intimidation wrapped in tragedy. Serve cold to the public with side of move along, nothing to see here. Except there's plenty to see here. We got suspicious meetings, shady money transfers, possible audio proof of a hit being ordered, and a trail of fear that's got even hardened street figures looking over their shoulders. And the worst part? This might just be the beginning. Because if the rumors are true about that hidden testimony file, then Dee's voice could still speak from the grave. And when it does, it might take down people who thought they were untouchable. But will it ever see the light of day? Or will it vanish? Just like the man who... And here's where things take the darkest turn yet. By the morning after Dee's death, the streets weren't just talking. They were buzzing like a power line in a rainstorm. Everyone had a theory. Everyone had a friend of a friend who knew the truth. And every single one of those stories had one thing in common. This wasn't over. Let's start with the official line. The Chicago PD, in a press conference that looked more like a hostage video than an update, claimed they were exploring all leads and seeking justice to the victim. No details on suspects. No talk of motive. Just the usual political tap dance around the fact that their star witness was dead under extremely convenient circumstances. But while the cops played dumb, others were playing offense. Word on the inside is that the prosecution is quietly pushing for a federal-level investigation into Dee's killing. Why? Because if they can prove his death was connected to the King Von case, it opens a door to witness tampering charges. And that means the feds can swoop in with resources, subpoenas, and the kind of reach the local police could only dream of. Sounds good, right? Well, hold that applause. Because here's the problem. A federal investigation also means more eyes on the entire case. And when you start turning over stones in Chicago's underworld, you're not just going to find the bugs you were looking for. you're going to find everything. That's exactly what some people are afraid of. My legal eagle source, an ex-prosecutor who now spends his days sipping whiskey and gossiping with journalists, told me that Dee's testimony was expected to implicate at least 2 people outside the main circle of suspects. We're talking businessmen, the kind with clean suits and dirtier money, the kind who don't show up in mugshots, but whose fingerprints are all over the city's underground economy. And if they get caught in the blast radius of this case, that's a whole new level of chaos. But here's where things get truly unhinged. Less than 48 hours after Dee's murder, an anonymous email lands in my inbox. No sender, no subject line, just a single attachment, a heavily distorted audio clip. In it, you can hear Dee's voice, shaky but clear enough to recognize, saying, "If something happens to me, it's because of what I know, and you know who you are." Then silence. Was it legit? Could it be part of that rumored hidden testimony file? I sent to a sound engineer friend who works with crime podcasts, and after an hour cleaning it up, he texted me one word: real. If that's true, then someone out there has the rest of it. The names, the dates, the details. And if they release it, we're talking about the kind of scandal that doesn't just trend on Twitter, it rewrites history. Meanwhile, the defense team is moving like sharks in bloodied water. They've already filed motions to have certain pieces of evidence thrown out, citing lack of corroboration without Dee's testimony. And get this, they're also pushing to delay the trial indefinitely. Their argument? The environment is too hostile for a fair trial. Translation: let's wait until the heat dies down and memories fade. And it might just work. On the streets, Dee's death has turned him into a folk hero. Murals are going up in his neighborhood. Candles and flowers line the spot where he was gunned down. Kids are wearing t-shirts with his face. Hashtags are becoming rallying cries. And while that kind of grassroots energy can push for justice, it can also make witnesses even more afraid to come forward. Because if they step up, they know exactly what happened to the last guy who tried. The paranoia is contagious. Another potential witness reportedly skipped town the night after Dee was killed. One family member told me, "We don't care about the money. We care about staying alive." And you can't argue with that. Now, here's a wild card in all this. The streets are starting to turn on people they once backed. Rumors are swirling about who ordered the hit, and some of the names being whispered would shock even the most hardened insiders. I'm talking about people whose involvement, if proven, would not only destroy careers, but ignite full-blown street wars. And if you think that's far-fetched, remember, this is the King Von case. Nothing about it has ever been simple. Social media detectives are now claiming to have found movement patterns between the SUV used in Dee's murder and vehicles spotted near the scene of Von's killing. If that's true, and that's a big if, then the same crew could have been involved in both hits, which changes everything. Imagine that. The possibility that King Von's death and Dee's death are chapters in the same bloody book. If prosecutors can connect those dots, it's no longer just a murder trial. It's a criminal conspiracy on a scale big enough to make national headlines for months. But will they? Or will this all get buried under the weight of intimidation, money, and corruption? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. In cases like this, the bad guys often win. They have the resources, the connections, and the ruthlessness to make problems disappear. And if Dee's killing proves anything, it's that they're willing to go all the way to protect themselves. Still, there's one thing they can't control: the court of public opinion. And right now, that court is on fire. Every leak, every rumor, every cryptic post is fuel for a growing storm. And when that storm hits, it won't matter how many press releases the police put out or how many lawyers the defense hires. People will demand answers. The only question is, will those answers come before more bodies drop? Because make no mistake, if Dee's death really was a message, someone else is next on the list. And when that happens, the fragile balance holding this case together will shatter completely. So as we sit here, watching the slow-motion train wreck, ask yourself, who stands to gain from keeping the truth buried? Who has the power to silence witnesses and make the system look the other way? And most importantly, how long before the next headline reads just like this one? Because in the King Von case, The truth isn't just dangerous, it's lethal. So now you've heard it. The whispers, the leaks, the suspicious money trails, and the blood-stained timeline that makes Dee's death look less like tragedy and more like strategy. The King Vaughn case was already messy, but now it's a storm no one can control. We're talking about a witness who knew too much, died too soon, and may still be speaking from the grave through recordings we haven't even heard yet. We're talking about powerful people with too much to lose, working overtime to make sure their names never hit the courtroom. And we're talking about a justice system that, once again, looks more like a rigged game than a fair fight. But here's where you come in. This story doesn't stay alive unless you keep it alive. The more we talk about Dee, the more we demand answers, the harder it gets for anyone to sweep this under the rug. So tell me, do you think Dee's death was a random act or a deliberate move to protect dangerous secrets? Was this the act of one desperate person or the work of a network built on fear and silence? And most importantly, who's next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue, speculate, connect the dots. I read them all. And if you've got something the rest of the world needs to hear, don't stay quiet. Because if we've learned anything from this, it's that silence is the real killer. Make sure you like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive. Because trust me, this story is far from over. And when the next piece of truth drops, you'll want to be right here with us, breaking it down before they can bury it.